you talk about being a tough experience, and things did get tough for you. I know there were injuries, and of course, you know, and it led to some issues with alcohol and drugs. And so how bad did it get for you? Where were you at in that bottom piece?
Yeah, I mean, I think the end of my career in San Jose and going into being bought out in the retirement the last, year and a half, the last 6 months after my retirement was the toughest. I think once you lose that piece of identity of who you are as a human and at least what I perceived as a hockey player,
Hmm.
to an end after so many years of that's being who you were and how you brought value and just realizing that like mentally and physically, like you said, injuries, the expectations, the demands of on my body with numerous and periods of length being out of the lineup, just kind of took a toll, on me. And there was by the end of my career in San Jose, even though I loved being at the rink with the guys, the teammates, they really kind of keep you going. And that's what I miss the most is the guys in the locker room, playing the game with them. But it became something where that became a place I didn't want to be. I was in San Jose. The weather was nice and warm outside, but I was isolated, lonely inside my place. And at that point, I had ankle surgery before the my last year, and they put my ligaments back together. And was taking opiates and pain meds and drinking, to the point where I had to continue to maintain, my what I thought was my health to maintain my ability to function and regulate getting to the rink and traveling and there were bouts and I had spoken to Doug Wilson at the beginning of that year and said that I was, that was one of my biggest, I think, when you say regrets was not being able to tell Doug like I needed help and say, I'm not doing well. When I said, yeah, things, I'm just, dealing with some things right now, but I'll figure it out. And obviously that's not the case, as so to be able to say, I needed help with something I wish I would have done sooner, even though it took what it take to get to that point where through the half of that year I was, worked with some other people to get back on the ice and regain my strength and play some of my better hockey. But by the end of the year, I just didn't have enough of recovery in me to know, what I was capable of. So by the end of year in San Jose, getting, bought out and then just kind of really falling more into a deeper, depression, my mental health suffered and not really wanting to see anyone or be around anybody. There was definitely some shame and guilt that went along with that, and so it was a long, year there, and, I did struggle, part of the lifestyle, the drinking and stuff throughout my career and some, depression and some loneliness. Like it gets to be, I think people realize like the expectations and the demands of playing hockey at a high level um, have a lot of pressure and can be demanding, especially when you feel like you're kind of on your own going through that process. But it really, yeah, kind of came to a head after I was bought out after the last year of my contract in San Jose.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been great if you mentioned it would have been nice to be able to say to Doug Wilson at that particular time that yes, I have a problem, and things could have nipped things in the bud, I suppose. But at this point, I think I want to bring in Saul into the conversation as well. So we're getting right into your bellywick here, Saul, as well. So but for whatever reason, I think it just is what it is. We have our bottoms that we need to get to in order for us to be willing to do what it takes to change. Because I look at there's points in my life when I could have said, you know, um, I got a problem, could have reached out, before I lost the next thing, before I lost the next thing, and that type of thing. But it wasn't until I was, hit the bottom that I needed to hit, before I was willing to really do what it takes, and for me, go to treatment, and then do what it takes to change. But one of the things, like you talked about the camaraderie in hockey and everything like that, uh, and so you have the recovery community hockey program which you launched, which is incredible, and really you have that right now. You can see how you can have that, but in my mind, right, I'm thinking when I got sober, well, that's the end of fun. Well, there goes fun in my life because I always associated fun with drinking and partying and that type of thing. And how can I possibly have fun without doing that? And so was that a problem for you, Paul, or something similar?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure I mentioned touched on the lifestyle. Like, I think, coming into the league, that was pretty apparent that that was just part of the way that it was, to be able to just, kind of fit in and be a part of the group, and and the travel and the demands, and ways to cope through the um, just through the season and to get through it. And I think, by the end of realizing that that's part of like who you are, and then going through the recovery process and getting sober, and who am I without that? How am I going to have fun? How do I go to a bar and not drink? How do I, make friends, build relationships? I feel like that is definitely a fear that I had, especially early on in recovery. And so a lot of that, I think, changed spending time with people that were doing the same thing that I was doing, wanting the same things that I wanted, had values that started to align with me as I started to realize like what I wanted and what was important to me. And you kind of learn who your real friends are, as far as that, want the best for you, that, love you no matter what, and are happy for your growth and your journey. And so I think that just takes time. Like, I just got back from a Fish show, in Vegas at the Sphere, sober with some buddies that have changed over time, which, for the music, it was incredible, and the lights, and the show, which before, I got sober, that wasn't even be possible, anxious even going to the concert knowing that I was sober. Like, so I feel like all of that is possible over time, working a program and surrounding yourself with the right people.